Hello everyone, welcome back. We're here with another episode of Motor Mouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
Is Dan.
Yeah, Dan.
And here we like to talk about the stuff here, the vehicles here that are on display a little more in depth. And we're going to talk about this today. This is one of our newer pieces, actually. It has not been here too long, this 28 Dodge. And I'm sure you will enlighten us as to why we have a Dodge.
I will try to enlighten us.
No offense to Dodge. We're a Pennsylvania built vehicle museum. So yeah, why is there a Dodge?
Well, there is
so
a
you'll
connection.
get to that. Yes.
And first of all, this is not a Dodge. I see
Oh,
the look
it's a
of
Dodge Brothers.
Dodge Brothers. It was the actual
Ooh, I'm
name
going to get
of
hate
these
mail now, aren't I?
No,
Okay.
no, because you have been corrected.
All right.
So, yeah, I can see.
I saw the error of my ways as it was pointed out to me.
I can see Doug. We will not use
Put the
Doug's
pens
last
down, Doug.
name
I
on
know.
here.
I'm sorry.
So, okay. Anyway, this car is a 1928 Dodge Brothers Victory 6 car. It's a four-door sedan. As Kendra said, we got this, I don't know, what, a couple of years ago, year and a half.
Years?
Yeah. And it's really neat. And before we started videoing this, it's not really filming it.
Yeah.
This is not film.
No, it's
videoing
that's right.
it, digitizing.
That's right.
Anyway, before we started doing that, I was mentioning how I like this car, and every time I see it, I like a little better. And Kendra, you agree with me.
Yeah, it's a pretty, it's not just pretty, it's just, I don't know, it's well designed to me.
Yeah,
it's all
it's
put
nice.
together nicely. And
very gangsterish looking
Yeah.
too. Kind
Yeah.
of this low look to it, and kind of has that little rake to
Yeah.
it where the front is lower, and it's just really neat. But okay, anyway, about this car. It's called the Victory 6, so that's a clue. It has a 6-cylinder engine in. Okay, it's an inline 6, 208 cubic inch, 58 horsepower. Dodge design and built, had new alloy aluminum pistons. And it's interesting because the car, this is like the middle model, okay? The top model was called the Senior. It had a Continental built engine, which was a proprietary engine builder that made engines for a lot of different companies.
Yeah.
But Dodge owned engines were put in this vehicle here. Transmission is a 3-speed forward, 1 reverse, wheelbase 112 inches. Cost $1,095 in this. This is a 5-passenger sedan, or a 4-door sedan, I guess you could call it, and such. This was a lot of new things were happening in Dodge in 1928, or excuse me. Now you got me saying Dodge
contagious.
Brothers in 1928. In 1933, they dropped the Brothers part, and it was just Dodge. So,
Yeah.
See, I'm futuristic thinking.
That's right. He's always looking forward, Dan.
Yeah. Okay. So as I said, these were not the top model. They had the Standard, and then the Senior were the Deluxe. So you had different levels. Or excuse me, you had the Standard and the Senior, yeah. And I just kind of goofed up here a little bit. So these were distinctive cars, and again, I've seen 28 Dodge Brothers cars that were not the Victory 6, and they look kind of ordinary almost, and it's kind of interesting that you had the middle line. And some of the things that set this car off from the other Dodge Brothers is you had on the fenders, you had a little crease here. Okay, all 4 fenders, the rear and the front like this. You had the crease. So if you're walking down the street, if you're walking down the main street here in Boyertown, and there's a whole line of 1928 Dodge Brothers cars, you can say, oh, that's a Victory 6,
There
because
you
you can
go.
see this. Another one is right here on above the radiator is this emblem here, Victory 6 there. And the most unique thing is these panels right here, this little panel here and here in the back. Now the other cars had that same panel, but you see the way this curves up here in the front And again, in the back, it does that. And so you can kind of spot these from a distance. And I just thought of this. It's almost like if you're walking down the street in Boyertown and there's a whole line of old delivery trucks from 1950, you can spot Boyertown trucks because
Yep.
they have different styling cues that make them stand out.
Yep.
That's the styles of these. Standard equipment came with this particular vehicle was a northeast ignition, okay? And it's the whole ignition system. It's called Northeast, which is interesting. Of course, when I see that, I have to look up other stuff to see, well, what about Northeast ignition? They began 1908 as a Rochester Coil Company in Rochester, New York. Okay, not to be confused with Rochester, Pennsylvania, which made
gas pumps.
Right. Very good. Very, very good.
And also spam calls you a lot.
Who?
You get their spam calls from Rochester, Pennsylvania.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Except I haven't gotten any ever since I did that show
They heard you.
where I talked about.
Yeah.
I got one from Port Royal, Pennsylvania yesterday. There's a racetrack there.
Yeah, well,
so that's
that
important.
you answered.
Okay, anyway.
So we're referencing a previous episode we did about the gas station.
Yeah. So go back and watch it.
That's right.
Many times.
Yeah.
Get our numbers up. So 1909 began as a Rochester Coil Company. Again, we're talking about the ignition, Northeast ignition. 1909 became the Northeast Electric Company, made electric starting and lighting systems, which this is, okay? 1929, the year after this car was built, General Motors acquired the company, renamed it Delco Appliance. 1939, created Rochester Products Division, made more than 120 different automotive products, including instrument panels, shock absorbers, fuel pumps, gauges. I even found something, they made cigarette lighters, so there were a bunch of different things here. During World War II, they made a variety of electrical equipment. After World War II, they made tubing for refrigeration. So it's kind of a lot of different stuff here by just this one company. They also made automotive locks and keys through the 1970s. And, and this was kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Okay. 1945, the first Rochester carburetor was made. 1949, the first Rochester designed carburetor was made. The other ones were under license from a different company. 1957, Chevrolet fuel injection called the Rochester Ramjet, okay? High performance option on Corvettes and passenger cars, $484. Anyway, the company's probably best known for the Rochester Quadrajet carburetor. They also made emissions control equipment, now part of General Motors Automotive Components Holdings Rochester operations, so it's a big thing. But I think most people, car people, think of Rochester and they think of the carburetors or the fuel injections, like on the early Corvettes and stuff. So that all goes back to the Northeast ignition in 1928, which is in this vehicle here. And I think I saw Northeast ignition on another vehicle.
Ooh. Treasure hunt continues.
You know what? I think it's on the Dodge engine we have sitting out there. So so it's kind of
Dodge Brothers engine.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, I think the engines were just made by one of the Dodge brothers.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't.
Singular Dodge.
Okay. So anyway, Northeast ignition. The wood spoke wheels, I think, are pretty neat in this car. You could get disc wheels, optional, the steel disc. This is interesting, and I went online and it was driving me nuts, and I talked to somebody who's a Dodge Brothers person about the brakes on it, and it's Lockheed hydraulic brakes, okay? They were in this car, but there was other Dodge Brothers cars that had steel hydraulic. That's the brand name, is steel hydraulic. which is mechanical cable operated brakes. And that hydraulic part makes you think they're hydraulic, and that's what was confusing. Are they cable operated or are they hydraulic and stuff? But they're not on this car, so we don't have to worry about that. Aftermarket stuff found in this vehicle was a Stewart Warner South Wind heater. So if you look in this car, and you can't really see it because it's pretty dark in there, but if you had a flashlight and shined it, you see underneath the dash towards the floor is the South Wind heater. It's a gasoline power heater invented by Harry J. McCullum.
Ooh.
McCullum. Introduced in the 1930s. So we know it didn't come new with this car.
That's right.
Because this is 1928.
Someone
30s.
altered it a bit.
Okay, so I wrote right here in my notes, it says, aha, an add-on for this car. Anyway, how it worked. Gas is drawn from the carburetor via a engine vacuum into firing chamber, atomized and ignited by a glow plug. Flame was adjustable and warmed in a finned oven inside the heater. Electric fan blew the air over the oven and into the car. Combustion gases were drawn back into the intake manifold by vacuum. Thermostat turned off the glow plug after ignition and controlled fan. So actually it's not that complicated, but it's just an interesting thing. But now we think of heaters, and actually
Every car, yeah.
Yeah, we can't even imagine cars without a heater.
Yeah.
Especially now it's
But that
cold
was
weather.
an aftermarket
Yep.
accessory.
So I think I said 1933. The Dodge Brothers was changed into Dodge. I was wrong. 1930. I should have read ahead of my notes a little bit. I had most of that right though. Okay, now Kendra mentioned right in the beginning, why is this car, which was made in Detroit, not Pennsylvania,
Not
Detroit, Michigan,
Detroit, Michigan,
into our museum, which is Pennsylvania-focused vehicles, okay? And you look all around, and most of these vehicles are made in Pennsylvania. Well, the interesting thing is the body on this was made in Philadelphia by Budd Body, B-U-D-D. You might know about Budd Bodies. They made train cars, the stainless steel train cars. That's where they got pretty famous from.
Yeah.
For years and years and years, they made wheels. You saw them in trucks. I'll see a truck advertised for sales. Oh, Budd wheels and such. They made other things. They were into airplanes and so on and so forth.
And they didn't go out of business terribly long ago either.
I don't think so.
You might just know them just from being around. And
I'm trying to think. I don't really have.
I don't remember the date. Although I've met someone that worked there, and he was not that old. So.
Yeah, I don't have a chronological thing about Budd, but so these bodies were patented. The Dodge Brothers 1928 Victory 6 bodies were actually a patented item. And so we're thinking of Philadelphia built again. The bodies were claimed to have half as many parts as conventional car bodies, which eliminated many joints and were stronger. Now, this is an all-steel body. Now, prior to this, cars had wood framing in them, and then you would just tack the metal onto it. I keep pointing at the door. That's not a good example, but like back in here, for instance, on the roof and such, the doors too, but when we're talking about the body, it's more this part. Dodge did have all steel bodies prior to this, but it was in 1928 where they sort of developed a lot of techniques and such. And one of the techniques, they needed wider pieces of sheet metal. Prior to this, the sheet metal was only being rolled in 24-inch widths. So if you wanted to do this piece here, I guess 24 inches could go here. But if you're getting into the back part, well, now it's taking two pieces of sheet metal, and you have to kind of tack them together, put body filler, which was lead back then, and then paint over, and the whole deal. You know, there's a lot of work. So now they're coming out and said, we need bigger sheet metal. and it kind of forced the steel companies into making bigger machines 48 inches wide. And I don't know what they're up to now, but 48 inches was sufficient back then. And so this was the first car company to do like this. And you always think back of the Depression, okay? This is 1928, Depression started in 1929. A lot of car businesses went out of business. Car companies went out of business. And people say, well, you know, they couldn't handle the Depression and such. Well, I came across something and they said, a lot of the reasons these car companies couldn't make it through, the smaller ones, is now they were having these bodies made with big pieces of sheet metal and stuff. They were changing the styles of cars every year. And you look at Fords, for instance, and you can see a difference from, you know, 1932 to 33, 34, and you just keep going up. And they did that. The small companies couldn't change it because the dies made to stamp the bodies cost huge amount of money.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And I think coupled with the Depression and lower car sales and stuff, they couldn't keep. So, you know, Dodge Brothers, as part of Chrysler Corporation, was a huge company, and they were selling, you know, hundreds of thousands of cars.
Yeah.
They can handle that. So same with General Motors and Ford. And you get some of the smaller companies, which were still pretty large, like Studebaker, Hudson, Nash, that kind of stuff. They can handle that too.
Yeah, well, once the big companies do something like that, you know, the small companies can't compete with that.
Right.
So then they start to look like old-fashioned or
right,
fuddy-duddy because they
go
just
out of
can't
date.
keep up. Yeah.
And we were saying earlier how neat this car looks, and you know, and this is probably high style for 1928.
Yeah.
You know, it seems lower than other things and everything else, and so anyway, so basically, because of Bud Body coming up with these new techniques of making cars all about steel and welding everything together and causing bigger pieces, back here again, bigger pieces of sheet metal made and such, and making this whole unit here, they just revolutionized the whole car industry. So anyway, we had these, and I read an article because when we got this car, I thought, okay, this is a nice car and stuff, and I knew it was Detroit made, but I knew it had a Bud Body, and I thought, okay, well, so what, you know? But then I read an article online, and like the last paragraph of this article, it was like a 10-page article if you print it out. It talked about important vehicles in automotive history as far as the whole world.
Yeah.
And it talked about the Benz motor wagon in 1886. Talked about the Model T Ford. Well, you know how that revolution. And it mentioned, and it was very distinctive, said the 1928 Dodge Brothers Victory 6 cars.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. So
that's cool.
It's very important with the Bud Body story. So yeah, it's a neat car and stuff, and the Bud Body was in Philadelphia, but once you start realizing the meaning of this Bud Body in the whole industry, it makes it a lot better story there. And I don't think I really did a really great job describing it, because it does get into technical detail and such, but just to know that because of what Bud was doing back then.
It was a whole new way to build a car.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was, yeah.
Totally revolutionary, like you said.
We have one of our Daniels over here from 1919. Okay, and yeah, it's 9 years older than this, but it's only like half made, and you can see the amount of wood in it. And you know, there were cars up in the 30s that were using still a lot of wood in. Well, they're the ones that didn't last either.
Right.
But you know, you can go to a car show or a car flea market where you have an all original car, kind of in pieces, falling apart and stuff, and look at it, and you can see the wood framing and such in it, and so.
especially when
So-
you're living like in this area of the United States, where they just all that wood just
Yeah.
gets wet,
Yep.
rots.
Yep.
and-
Yep. So,
yeah.
and that's pretty much the story about our 1928 Dodge Brothers Victory 6 four-door sedan. And I almost forgot. You've probably been looking at advertisements for this, and I did want to touch on them, but I'm just reading the headlines of these advertisements they're about 1928 Victory 6 Dodge Brothers, okay? Here's one: outperforms every motor car in its price easily, okay? So that's one of them. Performance entirely unique. So they're talking about performance here, talking about this. A glorious treat awaits you in the Victory 6. And I love the old advertising for these. The ones you're looking at are in color. I had a whole bunch of advertisements. I picked color ones out because they're really making it. Learn what a 6 at this price can be built to do. So there it is. They're talking about a 6-cylinder being built for a price. And all the cars were the same price at $1,095, no matter the body style. Another one, designed for feminine approval. So I don't know why this would be more appealing to a lady than a man, but it's just part of the advertising, and it's just really neat. And if you came in and you looked inside this car, it's all nicely done, a lot of room inside. So, anyway, so there you go. There's our Dodge.
It looks nice, and one of the questions we get a lot is, do the cars run? Do any of these cars run? And this one does, and it's probably one of the nicer ones to drive.
So we have to go on a drive with it.
Guess so.
And it says something about designed for feminine approval. So you approved
Got
of it.
my approval.
And so you're going to give me a ride afterwards.
Well, if it's not raining. It was raining out today.
Okay.
We don't want to get her dirty.
Okay, that's right. Oh, wait, it's all right. We don't have to, if it gets dirty, that's somebody else cleans it.
That's right.
So, okay, that's it.
So there's our Dodge Brothers
Dodge Brothers.
Victory 6. Really sharp looking. Come see it in person here at the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles, and we will see you next time.